Lisa Martinez stood in the long hallway outside the Galactic Council chambers and tried to calm her racing heart. The metal walls around her gleamed with a cold blue light that made everything feel strange and far from home. She had been waiting here for 3 hours now, but time moved differently on this space station, where dozens of alien species lived and worked together. Through the thick windows, she could see stars that no human had ever named, and planets that glowed with colors Earth had never seen. She touched the small Earth flag on her uniform collar and thought about how she had gotten here 10 years ago. Earth had first asked to join the Galactic Federation, and the answer had been the same every time. No, the aliens said humans were too young and too wild to be trusted with the advanced technology and knowledge that came with membership. They said human emotions were too strong and human minds too chaotic to fit in with the ordered civilization they had built among the stars. But Earth needed the Federation now more than ever. Strange ships had been seen at the edge of human space, and the few alien traders who still visited Earth spoke in whispers about something dark moving between the stars. Earth's weapons and shields were nothing compared to what was coming, and everyone knew it. The only hope was to join the Federation and gain access to their protection and their knowledge. The marriage alliance was the Federation's idea. Said that if a human could successfully bond with an alien partner, then it would prove that humans could adapt and become part of their greater community. 17 different alien species had been offered as potential partners over the past 2 years. 17 times a human representative had traveled to this station to meet their possible mate. 17 times the aliens had looked at the human and said no. Lisa was the 18th attempt, and probably the last. She knew that if she failed today, then Earth would be on its own when the darkness came. The weight of 6 billion human lives rested on her shoulders, and she felt every ounce of it as she waited in that cold hallway. The door to the council chambers finally opened with a soft hiss, and a tall figure emerged. Lisa had studied the files, but seeing an Etherian in person was still shocking. Prince Kale moved like liquid light, and his body seemed to be made of living crystal that caught and reflected every photon around him. His face was beautiful in a way that hurt to look at directly, and when he turned those multifaceted eyes toward her, Lisa felt like she was being examined by a living prism. Most of the previous alien suitors had barely acknowledged the human representatives. They would enter the chamber, conduct the formal meeting with the council, and leave without more than a glance at their potential partner. Lisa had watched the recordings and seen how the Zephyrian Lord had actually turned his back when the human woman tried to speak to him. The crystalline queen had looked through the human man as if he was not even there, but Kale was different. He walked directly to Lisa and stopped just close enough that she could see the way light moved through his crystalline skin like trapped lightning. When he spoke, his voice was like music played on instruments made of glass and silver. "You are Lisa Martinez of Earth," he said, and it was not a question. "I have read your service record. You commanded the defense of Luna Colony when the pirates attacked. You saved 3,000 lives that day." Lisa blinked in surprise. None of the other aliens had bothered to learn anything about their potential human partners beyond the basic diplomatic files. "Yes, sir. I did my duty." Duty. Kale repeated the word as if tasting it. An interesting concept. "Tell me, Commander Martinez, why did you volunteer for this mission when you knew that 17 others had failed before you?" The question caught Lisa off guard. She had expected formal pleasantries and ritual exchanges, not direct personal inquiry. She looked into those strange, beautiful eyes and decided to tell the truth. "Because someone has to try," she said simply. "Because Earth needs the Federation, and if there is even a small chance that I might succeed where others failed, then I have to take it. My people are counting on me." Something shifted in Kale's crystalline features. The light patterns under his skin changed color from cool blue to warm gold, and Lisa realized she was seeing some kind of emotional response. He studied her for a long moment before speaking again. "The Council has prepared the traditional compatibility tests," he said. "But before we begin, I want you to know something. My people believe that beauty comes from order and perfection. We value logic above emotion and predictability above chaos. By all the standards of my species, you should be completely incompatible with me." Lisa felt her heart sink. Another rejection was coming, and she could hear it in his voice. "I understand. Sir, if you wish to withdraw from consideration, then—" "I said you should be incompatible," Kale interrupted her. "I did not say that you were. There is something about you, Lisa Martinez, that my people have never encountered before. Something that makes me want to know more instead of less. Something that makes me think that perhaps my species has been measuring beauty by the wrong standards." The council chamber doors opened again, and a voice spoke in the universal language that all Federation members understood. "Prince Kale of the Etherian Empire and Commander Lisa Martinez of Earth, the council calls you to begin the trials of compatibility." Kale extended one crystal hand toward Lisa, and after a moment's hesitation she took it. His skin was warm, despite looking like living glass, and she felt a small electric tingle where they touched. Together they walked into the chamber where representatives of dozens of worlds waited to judge whether a human and an Etherian could bridge the gap between chaos and order, between emotion and logic, between the wild young species called humanity and the ancient civilized races of the galaxy. The council chamber was huge and filled with beings that Lisa had only seen in pictures before now. There were the floating gas beings of Nebulon, who looked like living clouds shot through with lightning. The insect-like hive queens sat in there, powered armor while their worker drones buzzed around them in perfect formation. Rock creatures from the heavy world stood like living mountains, while the energy beings from the quantum realm flickered in and out of visible existence. All of them were watching Lisa and Kale as they walked to the center of the chamber where 3 testing stations had been prepared. The air hummed with translation devices and recording equipment that would capture every moment of what happened next. Lisa could feel the weight of their attention, like a physical thing pressing down on her shoulders. The head of the council was an ancient being called the Curator, who had been alive for over 1,000 years and had overseen every marriage alliance in Federation history. When he spoke, his voice echoed from speakers placed throughout the chamber so that every being present could understand his words regardless of their species. "We gather today for the 18th attempt to bond a human representative with a member species of the Federation," the Curator announced. "Previous attempts have failed to demonstrate the compatibility necessary for such an alliance. Today we will conduct the full trial of compatibility to determine if this pairing shows greater promise." Lisa felt Kale's crystal hand squeeze hers gently, and she drew strength from the contact. She had trained for months to prepare for these tests, but knowing what was coming and actually facing it were 2 very different things. "The first trial is the mind meld," the Curator continued. "Both participants will link their consciousness through the neural interface. Success requires complete mental harmony for a period of no less than 10 minutes. Failure will result in immediate disqualification." Lisa and Kyle approached the first station, where 2 chairs sat facing each other with a complex piece of alien technology between them. The neural interface looked like a metal tree with dozens of thin cables ending in small devices that would attach to their heads. Lisa had seen the recordings of previous human attempts at this test and knew that none had lasted more than 30 seconds before the chaos of human thought patterns overwhelmed their alien partners. They sat down and technicians began attaching the neural links. Lisa could feel the small devices against her temples and the back of her neck. The sensation was cold and slightly uncomfortable, but not painful. Across from her, Kale's crystalline skin began to glow brighter as the interface connected to his alien nervous system. Begin mind meld, the curator commanded. The world exploded into sensation as Lisa's mind suddenly expanded beyond the boundaries of her skull. She could feel Kale's consciousness touching hers, and the contact was like nothing she had ever experienced. His thoughts moved in perfect mathematical patterns, while hers swirled in the chaotic emotional storms that marked human thinking. She could sense his confusion as her memories and feelings crashed against his ordered mental landscape like waves against a crystal shore. But instead of pulling away or being overwhelmed, Kale did something that surprised everyone in the chamber, including himself. He reached deeper into the connection and began to find patterns in Lisa's chaos. Her military training had taught her discipline and focus that most humans never developed. Her years of command had shown her how to turn emotional energy into decisive action. Where other humans had brought pure disorder, Lisa brought controlled chaos that could be shaped and directed. Minutes passed, and the neural interface registered something that had never been recorded before. Instead of Lisa's human patterns being suppressed by Kale's crystalline logic, the two types of consciousness began to work together. His mathematical precision gave structure to her creative intuition, while her emotional depth added warmth and flexibility to his cold calculations. They were not becoming the same, but they were becoming complementary in ways that enhanced both of their natural abilities. 10 minutes passed, and then 15. The chamber had fallen silent as representatives from dozens of worlds watched readings that defied everything they thought they knew about human-alien compatibility. Finally, after 23 minutes, the test officially ended and the neural links were disconnected. Lisa gasped as her consciousness snapped back into the confines of her own skull. The loss of connection with Kale's mind left her feeling strangely empty and incomplete. Across from her, the Etherian prince was glowing with colors she had never seen before, and she realized she was witnessing something like wonder in his alien features. "Impossible," whispered one of the council members. "The readings show perfect synchronization." But there was no time to process what had just happened, because the second trial was already beginning. The combat of honor was conducted in a holographic arena that could simulate any environment or threat the council chose to create. Lisa and Kale found themselves standing in what looked like the surface of a dead world under a red sun, while creatures made of living shadow began to materialize around them. "Defend each other," the curator commanded. "Survive for 15 minutes against the Void Hunters." The shadow creatures moved like liquid darkness, and their touch could drain the life from any living thing. Lisa drew her plasma pistol, while Kale raised his hands and began to gather energy between his crystal fingers. The first wave of attackers came from all directions at once. Lisa had fought in dozens of battles, but never alongside an alien partner and never against enemies like these. The Void Hunters could phase in and out of existence and seemed to anticipate every conventional tactic she tried. But when Kale's energy blasts lit up the simulated battlefield, she began to see patterns in how the creatures moved and reacted. "There! Avoiding your light," she shouted to Kale as she rolled away from grasping shadow claws. "Use it to herd them toward me." What followed was a dance of destruction that amazed everyone watching. Kale's precise energy manipulation, combined with Lisa's tactical improvisation, created a fighting partnership that was greater than the sum of its parts. He would blind and confuse the shadow creatures with bursts of crystalline light, while she used her human unpredictability to attack from angles they could not anticipate. When one of them was in danger, the other would instantly adapt their strategy to provide support. 15 minutes stretched into 20 and then 25 before the simulation finally ended. The Void Hunters faded away, leaving Lisa and Kale standing back to back in the center of the arena, both breathing hard but victorious. Around them, the council chamber erupted in excited conversation as representatives tried to process what they had just witnessed. The final test was called the Heart's Truth, and it was the most dangerous of all. Lisa and Kale were led to a simple, white room with no equipment or technology. Here they would have to reveal their deepest nature to each other, without any artificial aids or protections. Many previous candidates had been psychologically damaged by this test, and some had never fully recovered. "Show each other who you truly are," the curator commanded through speakers in the walls. "Hold nothing back, truth or failure." Lisa looked into Kale's multifaceted eyes and made a decision that would change both of their lives forever. She opened her heart completely and let him see everything she was and everything she hoped to become. In that white room with no witnesses except each other, Lisa let Kale see everything. She showed him her childhood on Earth, where she had grown up in a small farming town under skies that were always blue. She let him feel her grief when her parents died in the colony ship accident that took 300 lives. He experienced her determination when she joined the military and her fear during her first battle, when she realized that courage was not the absence of terror, but acting. Despite it, Kale's consciousness flowed around these memories, like water finding the shape of its container, and Lisa felt him understanding things about humanity that no alien had ever grasped before. He saw that human emotions were not weaknesses to be overcome, but sources of incredible strength when properly focused. Her love for her people gave her the will to sacrifice everything for their survival. Her anger at injustice drove her to fight harder than logic alone could ever motivate. Her hope in the face of impossible odds allowed her to find solutions that pure reason would dismiss as fantasy. But the revelation flowed both ways, and Kale opened his crystalline consciousness to Lisa in return. She experienced the ordered perfection of Etherian society, where every individual knew their place and purpose from the moment of their creation. She felt the beauty of mathematical harmony that governed every aspect of their civilization, and the peace that came from living in perfect synchronization with natural law. Yet she also sensed something that Kale had never admitted even to himself. Beneath the crystal perfection, there was a loneliness that had grown over centuries of predictable existence. His people had achieved everything they had ever wanted, but in doing so, they had lost the capacity for surprise, for wonder, for the chaotic joy that came from not knowing what tomorrow might bring. They were beautiful, but they were incomplete. "Your species sees chaos where we see possibility," Lisa whispered as their minds touched at the deepest level. "You think our emotions make us weak, but they make us capable of things your pure logic never could achieve. And your chaos gives meaning to our order," Kale replied through their mental connection. "We have spent so long pursuing perfection that we forgot why perfection was worth pursuing. You remind us what it feels like to be truly alive." When they finally separated and returned to the council chamber, something fundamental had changed between them. The alien representatives could see it in the way they moved together and the way their very different forms of consciousness had begun to complement each other. The test results were unlike anything in Federation history. The curator studied the data for long minutes while the chamber waited in tense silence. When he finally spoke, his ancient voice carried a note of amazement that had not been heard in these halls for generations. "The compatibility ratings exceed our highest recorded measurements," he announced. The neural harmony achieved during the mind meld lasted 23 minutes without degradation. The combat coordination showed tactical innovation that surpassed both individual capabilities. The psychological bonding in the Heart's Truth created a stable partnership matrix that our instruments can barely measure. Excited murmurs filled the chamber as representatives from dozens of worlds processed this information. For the first time in galactic history, a human had not only passed the OCE compatibility tests, but had achieved results that challenged everything. They thought they knew about interspecies bonding, but their celebration was interrupted when urgent alerts began flashing throughout the station. Emergency signals screamed from every communication device as reports flooded in from across Federation. Space. The darkness that had been gathering at the edges of known space had finally revealed itself. The void. Swarm had arrived. Lisa watched the tactical displays with growing horror as entire star systems simply vanished from the sensor networks. These were not ordinary enemies that could be fought with conventional weapons or tactics. The void entities consumed reality itself, unmaking matter and energy, and leaving behind regions of space where nothing could exist. This is why we needed the Marriage Alliance, Kale said quietly as they stood together watching civilization begin to crumble. My people have known for decades that this threat was coming. We have been preparing, but our preparations are not enough. What do you mean? Lisa asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. The void feeds on ordered consciousness, Kale explained. Every species in the Federation thinks in patterns that these entities can predict and consume. Our logic makes us vulnerable because we can only respond in ways they can anticipate. But human consciousness is different. Your chaos confuses them. Your emotions create mental structures they cannot digest. Your unpredictability makes you the only weapon we have that they cannot counter. Lisa felt the weight of understanding settle on her shoulders. The 17 failed marriage attempts had not been about finding a suitable partner for political alliance. They had been about finding the right combination of human and alien consciousness that could resist the void and develop new ways of fighting back. The other species rejected us because they were afraid, she realized. They knew what was coming, and they could not bring themselves to accept that their salvation might come from the chaotic young race they had always looked down upon. But I was not afraid, Kale said, and his crystalline features glowed with warm light. When I looked at you, I did not see chaos to be feared. I saw potential to be embraced. I saw beauty in your differences, instead of flaws to be corrected. Around them, the council chamber had erupted into controlled panic as military commanders received reports from the front lines. The void swarm was advancing on multiple fronts, and the Federation's most powerful fleets were being destroyed without even slowing the enemy advance. Traditional weapons passed harmlessly through the void entities, while their touch unmade entire ships and their crews. Admiral Kate Sullivan's voice crackled through the communication system from Earth, where humanity's small fleet was engaging void scouts at the edge of the solar system. Federation Command. This is Earth Defense Force. We are engaging hostile entities with primitive kinetic weapons and are achieving unexpected results. The void creatures seem unable to process our attack patterns, requesting immediate tactical coordination with Federation forces. Lisa and Kale exchanged glances as the implications became clear. Humanity's primitive technology and chaotic tactics were actually effective against enemies that could easily defeat the Federation's advanced weapons. The Marriage Alliance was no longer just about political integration. It was about survival. The curator's ancient voice cut through the chaos in the chamber. The marriage proposal is approved by emergency protocol. The ceremony will be conducted immediately so that the tactical bonding can begin. Prince Kale of the Etherean Empire and Commander Lisa Martinez of Earth, you have 1 hour to prepare for a wedding that may determine the fate of every living thing in the galaxy. As they left the chamber together to prepare for their rushed ceremony, Lisa realized that she was no longer thinking of this as a diplomatic mission, or even as a marriage of convenience. Somewhere during those tests, her respect for Kale had grown into something deeper and more personal. When she looked at him now, she saw not just an alien partner, but someone who had chosen to see beauty where everyone else saw only chaos. Wedding would bind them together legally and politically, but Lisa suspected that their hearts had already made that choice in the White Room, where they had shown each other their deepest truths. Whatever came next, they would face it together, as partners in every sense of the word. The wedding ceremony took place in the Federation flagship's main assembly hall, while battle reports continued to stream in from across the galaxy. Representatives from hundreds of worlds gathered to witness the union that everyone hoped would save them from extinction. Lisa wore her dress uniform, with the small Earth flag still pinned to her collar, while Kale appeared in ceremonial robes that seemed to be woven from liquid starlight. The ceremony itself was a blend of human and Etherian traditions that had been hastily arranged by the diplomatic corps. Lisa spoke vows that came from her heart about choosing to build a future together even when that future was uncertain. Kale's pledge was delivered in harmonic frequencies that made the crystal fixtures throughout the hall resonate with pure musical tones. When the translator converted his words to human language, they spoke of finding completeness in unity while maintaining the beauty of individual difference. But the moment that changed everything came when they exchanged the traditional bonding crystals. As soon as Lisa touched the small fragment of Etherian crystal that Kale offered her, something unprecedented happened. The neural pathways that had been opened during their compatibility tests suddenly reactivated, and their consciousness began to merge in ways that went far beyond what the tests had measured. Every being in the assembly hall felt the psychic shockwave that rippled out from their union. It was as if reality itself had been restructured around a new type of hybrid consciousness that combined organic chaos with crystalline order in perfect balance. The energy wave spread beyond the ship and across Federation space, touching every sensitive mind in the galaxy with the sensation of possibility being born. Lisa gasped as her awareness suddenly expanded to encompass not just her own thoughts, but Kale's as well. She could feel his crystalline logic supporting and strengthening her intuitive leaps, while her emotional depth added warmth and meaning to his mathematical precision. They were still themselves, but they were also something new and greater than either could be alone. The celebration was interrupted by urgent alerts as Admiral Sullivan's voice reached them from Earth. Federation Command, we have a problem. The void entities are adapting to our tactics faster than expected. We need new strategies immediately, or the solar system will be overrun within hours. Lisa and Kale looked at each other and knew without speaking that this was the moment they had been prepared for. Their unique bond was not just a symbol of unity between their species, but a weapon that could turn the tide of the war. Together they walked to the command center, where holographic displays showed the scope of the disaster unfolding across known space. Entire sectors had gone dark as the void swarm consumed planets and stars with equal efficiency. The entities moved in patterns that defied understanding, appearing and disappearing across vast distances as if space itself meant nothing to them. Traditional Federation battle tactics were useless because these enemies did not follow the physical laws that governed conventional warfare. "Show me the Earth battle," Lisa commanded, and the displays shifted to show her home system. Human ships that looked primitive compared to Federation technology were engaged in running battles with creatures that seemed to be made of living darkness. But something about the human tactics was working. The void entities that could easily destroy Federation cruisers were being damaged and sometimes destroyed by human weapons that should have been completely ineffective. Through her bond with Kale, Lisa could perceive patterns in the void movement that no single consciousness could have detected. Her human intuition spotted the chaos underlying their apparent randomness, while his crystalline logic found mathematical relationships in their behavior. Together they began to understand something that had escaped every military analyst in the Federation. "They are not random," Lisa said as understanding dawned. "They move in response to ordered thought patterns. The more logical and predictable our tactics become, the easier it is for them to counter us. But human unpredictability creates cognitive dissonance that damages their ability to process reality. More than that, Kale added as his consciousness meshed with hers to explore the implications. They feed on ordered consciousness, but chaotic thought patterns are like poison to them. Every human mind that remains active in their presence weakens their ability to unmake local reality. The command staff gathered around them as Lisa and Kale began developing new battle strategies that combined Federation technology with human. Tactical chaos. Instead of the precise formations and calculated maneuvers that had failed so completely, they designed assault patterns based on controlled randomness and emotional decision-making. "Send this to all fleet commanders," Lisa ordered as data flowed between her mind and Kale's at the speed of thought. "Human personnel will take tactical command of all engagements. Federation crew will provide technical support, but all strategic. Decisions must be made by humans using intuition rather than logic. The more chaotic and unpredictable our response becomes, the more effective it will be." The first test of their new approach came when a void entity materialized near the flagship. Itself, the creature was enormous, a writhing mass of darkness that seemed to bend space around it as it approached. Federation weapons passed harmlessly through its form, while its very presence began to unmake the hull plating of nearby ships. Lisa closed her eyes and reached deep into the bond she shared with Kale. Through their connection, she could perceive the entity not as her human eyes saw it, but as a disruption in the mathematical harmony of space-time that his crystalline consciousness could map. She could feel its alien hunger and its confusion as it encountered the hybrid thought patterns that she and Kale generated together. "All ships, random evasive maneuvers," she commanded. "Do not think about where you're going. React purely on instinct and emotion. Pretend you are flying through an asteroid field in a storm with your eyes closed." The Federation pilots had been trained for precision and coordination, but they followed orders and began flying in patterns that violated every principle of tactical doctrine. Their ships weaved and danced through space in ways that made no sense from a strategic standpoint, but created exactly the kind of cognitive chaos that the void entity could not process. As the creatures struggled to adapt to the unpredictable human response, Lisa felt something else through her bond with Kale. The entity was not just confused by the chaotic tactics. It was being damaged by them. The random patterns created by human consciousness were like acid eating away at its ability to maintain coherent existence. "Target the creature with everything we have," Lisa commanded. "Fire when you feel like it, not when computers tell you to. Trust your instincts over your instruments." The combined fire of the human-commanded Federation fleet struck the void entity from dozens of directions at once. But more importantly, the weapons were fired by minds that were thinking chaotic thoughts rather than ordered ones. Each blast carried with it the unpredictable nature of human consciousness, and the creature began to dissolve under the assault. When the entity finally dispersed into nothingness, a cheer went up from every ship in the fleet. For the first time since the war began, they had not just survived an encounter with the void, but had actually destroyed one of the creatures. The victory sent a wave of hope across Federation space as commanders realized that they finally had a weapon that could fight back. But Lisa and Kale knew that this was only the beginning. The void swarm was vast, and destroying one entity would barely slow their advance. If they were going to save the galaxy, they would need to do something that no one had ever attempted before. They would need to take their hybrid consciousness and use it to coordinate the defense of thousands of worlds simultaneously. Looking into each other's eyes, they made the decision that would either save civilization or destroy them both. They began to open their mental bond, not just to each other, but to every human and every alien mind that was willing to join the chaotic harmony they had created. The final battle for the galaxy was about to begin. The final battle began in the Nexus system, where the largest concentration of void entities had gathered to consume the Federation's capital world. Lisa stood on the bridge of the flagship while maintaining constant mental contact with Kale, who coordinated defense efforts from the planet's surface. Their hybrid consciousness had become the central hub for a network that connected human and alien minds across dozens of star systems. Through this unprecedented mental link, Lisa could simultaneously command fleets in distant sectors while experiencing the individual battles through the eyes of thousands of different pilots and soldiers. Her human intuition processed the chaotic information streams, while Kale's crystalline logic found patterns and connections that allowed them to coordinate responses on a galactic scale. But the scope of the Void Assault was beyond anything they had prepared for. The entities were not just attacking individual worlds, but attempting to unmake entire regions of space-time. Stars were being extinguished not through physical destruction, but by having their very existence erased from reality. Planets vanished along with every trace that they had ever existed, leaving behind voids in space where nothing could ever exist again. The main swarm was converging on Nexus Prime. Admiral Sullivan reported from her position, commanding the human fleet elements. Whatever they are planning to do here will be their final move. If we cannot stop them at this location, then the rest of the galaxy will fall within days. Lisa felt the truth of that statement through her connection to the tactical network. The void entities were gathering their full strength for one massive assault that would consume the heart of Federation civilization and leave the remaining worlds isolated and defenseless. This battle would determine whether organized life would continue to exist in the galaxy, or whether everything would be reduced to empty darkness. Through her bond with Kale, she could perceive the void entities more clearly than ever before. They were not truly alive in any sense that organic or even crystalline minds could understand. They were expressions of entropy itself, manifestations of the universe's tendency toward decay and dissolution. They existed to unmake, and their very presence caused reality to become unstable and unreliable. But Lisa also sensed something else about them, something that no previous analysis had detected. The entities were not immune to the chaos they created. When forced to confront truly random and unpredictable stimuli, they began to lose coherence themselves. The ordered destruction they brought to the universe required them to maintain their own internal logic, and that logic could be disrupted by sufficient chaos. "I have an idea," Lisa said to Kale through their mental link, "but it will require me to do something that might destroy my mind completely." She felt his instant concern and his desire to protect her, but also his understanding that desperate times required desperate measures. "Tell me what you need." The void entities maintain their existence by imposing order on the chaos they create. Lisa explained as her consciousness raced through possibilities that pure logic would never have considered. But what if we could reverse that process? What if instead of fighting their order with more order, we fought it with so much chaos that they could not maintain coherence? That would require opening human consciousness to the entire void swarm at once, Kale replied with growing alarm. The psychic backlash could destroy every human mind in the galaxy. "Not if we have something to anchor us," Lisa said, as she made the decision that would save or damn them all. "Not if we have love to hold us together when everything else falls apart." Before Kale could object, Lisa opened her mind completely to the Federation Defense Network. Not just to the human and alien military personnel, but to every living consciousness within range of their psychic bond. She felt millions of minds suddenly connected to hers as she became the focal point for the combined mental energy of entire civilizations. The sensation was overwhelming and would have destroyed any normal human consciousness instantly. But Lisa was not alone in her mind. Kale's crystalline logic provided structure and stability, while their love for each other created an unbreakable core that could not be dissolved by chaos or entropy. Together they became something that had never existed before, a hybrid entity that combined the strength of multiple species into a single focused will dot. With this vast network of consciousness supporting her, Lisa reached out to touch the minds of the void entities themselves. The contact was like grasping molten metal with her bare hands, but she held on and began to pour pure human chaos directly into their ordered thought patterns. Every random memory, every irrational emotion, every unpredictable human impulse flowed through the connection and into the alien minds that had never encountered such cognitive disorder. The effect was immediate and devastating. Across the Nexus system, void entities began to flicker and fade as their ability to maintain coherent existence broke down under the assault of pure chaos. But Lisa paid a terrible price for the victory. The effort of channeling so much mental energy through her consciousness began to burn away parts of her personality and memory. She felt herself fragmenting as the psychic feedback tore through her mind like fire. Her childhood memories dissolved first, then her military training and her sense of individual identity. Everything that made her Lisa Martinez was being consumed by the effort to save the galaxy, and she found herself accepting that sacrifice as the price of victory. But Kale would not let her go. Through their bond, he reached deep into the chaos, consuming her mind, and began to pull back the pieces of her consciousness that were being lost. His crystalline nature allowed him to find pattern and structure in the mental storm, and slowly, he began to rebuild her sense of self from the fragments that remained. "Come back to me," he whispered through their link as Lisa's consciousness wavered on the edge of dissolution. "You are more than just chaos. You are hope and courage and love and all the things that make existence worth preserving. Do not let the darkness take that away." Gradually, Lisa felt herself becoming whole again as Kale's love and determination gave her the strength to pull back from the brink of madness. Around them, the last of the void entities were fading away as the combined chaos of human consciousness proved too toxic for them to endure. The galaxy was saved, but the cost had been higher than anyone could have imagined. When the battle was finally over and the immediate crisis had passed, Lisa and Kale found themselves forever changed by what they had experienced together. Their consciousness remained linked in ways that went far beyond their original bonding, and they discovered that they could still feel the presence of thousands of other minds that had shared in their desperate gambit. The victory celebration that followed was subdued as the galaxy began to count the cost of salvation. Entire star systems had been lost, and billions of lives had been sacrificed to stop the void advance. But something new and hopeful had also been born from the ashes of destruction. The forced cooperation between human and alien minds during the final battle had created understanding between species that had never existed before. For the first time in galactic history, the different races truly comprehended each other, not just intellect,